in Iran, an alternative to the Shah.
In Washington, they are sold as freedom fighters, the democratic alternative for Iran. But before we buy the packaging, we need to read the receipts. Founded in 1965, the MEK combined Islamic theology with Marxist ideology. Their mission? To destroy the Shah's government and drive American imperialism out of Iran. From the start, they followed two tracks: armed struggle and propaganda. In the 1970s, they used bombs to target American personnel. They assassinated at least 6 U.S. citizens, including military officers Lieutenant Colonel Lewis Hawkins, Colonel Paul Schaefer, and Lieutenant Colonel Jack Turner. Their radicalism was fueled by deep ties to the Palestine Liberation Organization, sending members to training camps in Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. Their platform called for the total uprooting of Zionist foundations. When the U.S. Embassy was seized in 1979, the MEK actively participated. They declared, "After the Shah, it's America's turn." In the wake of the failed U.S. rescue attempt, they placed their military units at the disposal of the Revolutionary Guards to fight America. Once the hostages were released, the MEK condemned it as a surrender and labeled restoring U.S. ties as treason. Following a fallout with the new regime, they fled to Iraq to become foot soldiers for Saddam Hussein. In 1991, they reportedly helped Saddam's guard crush Shia and Kurdish uprisings. Inside their camps, they became a cult. Reports describe forced divorces, stolen children, and re-education prisons for dissenters. Because of these violent acts, the U.S. State Department designated the MEK as a foreign terrorist organization in 1997. However, the MEK launched a massive, multi-million-dollar lobbying campaign in Western capitals. In 2012, during the Obama administration, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton delisted them. But even then, the U.S. government warned, "We have not forgotten their past terrorism." Today, the goal is rebranding. The message is polished. The events look official. The branding says freedom. But the record does not change. An official State Department report was clear. They are shunned by most Iranians and are fundamentally undemocratic. They are not a
Hello,
viable
Sharafat.
alternative for Iran. However, some prominent U.S. political figures and advocacy networks have tried to rebrand the MEK. But make no mistake, these are paid appearances.
And MEK is leading the way to a free Iran. Is there an alternative to the mullahs, to the dictatorship? And the answer is yes. It's the resistance. It's the MEK. It's Mrs. Rajavi.
The MEK has funneled massive sums into speakers' fees, but they are not buying legitimacy. They're renting it. Today, they hide behind shell groups like the Organization of Iranian American Community to appear popular. They can still push the same narrative through lobbying and legacy media, and they even disable comments across their digital platforms because they cannot handle public feedback. But we've seen the history. We're not buying the packaging. We're reading the receipts.
So, this group, Islamist mixed with Marxist, they are against the Islamic Republic. They are against the regime. Just like the Pahlavi monarchists, they are hoping for regime change in Iran, but it would be a different kind of regime change. And we haven't heard much from them this time round. It's interesting to note that they had close ties with the PLO, that's the Palestine Liberation Organization. They were in Iraq at some point, in Camp Ashraf, if I'm correct. That's where they were based. And they had close ties with Saddam Hussein, who was ousted. But remember, at one point, Saddam Hussein was a friend of the West and was installed by the West. So it gets very, very murky. If you remember this gentleman, he was the Speaker in the House of Commons, John Bercow. He's been a Conservative MP, he's been a Labour MP, he's kind of a little bit of everything. He is an unlikely character, I thought, to be talking about the MEK, the Mujahideen organization. But here he is.
Mr. Pahlavi cannot be accused of too much arduous work over the decades. He was born into enormous wealth and privilege.
Right, so he's criticizing the would-be Shah, and he's sitting in front of the alternative Iranian flag, the lion and sun flag, the opposition flag that's against the regime, but he's criticizing the would-be Shah.
He scuttled off to the United States 4.5 decades ago. I'm not aware of anything useful he's done since, but apparently he goes to bed at night, my source tells me, eagerly entertaining the hope that the moment is nigh. The prince over the water, who will come to the rescue and achieve of leadership. Well, I stopped believing in fairy tales before I became a teenager. This guy's now in his mid-60s. I have to say to him, just as our little secret between Mr. Pahlavi and me, mate, you are deluded.
This almost sounds like regime propaganda. This was 3 days ago. And remember, John Bercow wants regime change as well. Sevi in the chat is saying, "Are you a psychopath?" How would I know, Sevi? What are the signs of psychopathy? Is it hairs on the palm of your hand, or looking for them? Let me know if you're an expert.
In political terms, you are off your chump. You haven't got a clue.
Sound check on Sarah Dardasha. Can you hear
The
us?
idea that the mass of the
Give me a thumbs
people of
up.
Iran are going to say to the son of the most appalling autocrat who pillaged the country and presided over mass destruction, please, sir, we know you haven't got much of a curriculum vitae. We know you haven't done much by way of effective work in your life, but we'd really like you to be our next leader. Mr. Pahlavi, it isn't going to happen. Do something else. Take up golf. Undergo a course in Japanese basket weaving. Become a specialist cook. Study the great philosophers. Read a collection of Greek mythology.
There's the leader. There's the leader of the MEK. Sometimes I call it the MEK, and sometimes I call it the MKO. I think both acronyms are used. Mujahideen-e-Khalq organization, but they're sort of informally known as the Mujahideen, and they're around a long time. Even at the time of the Islamic Revolution 47 years ago, the Mujahideen were one of the groups vying for power in that power vacuum when the Shah was ousted. It could have been the Mujahideen that took control, but it wasn't. The Islamic Revolution happened. Rick Young is saying, "Us guys from a dead civilization." Okay, let's hear a bit more from John.
My dear chap, I don't mind what it is, but stop muddying the waters as far as the future of Iran is concerned.
Okay, he's very concerned about the future of Iran. Now, based on the video that we saw at the beginning and all the money flying around, do you suspect that John Bercow, that was at once upon a time a Labour politician, another time he was a Tory politician, do you think perhaps this guy just changes his mind and goes in the direction of the money? I don't know, but it seems an odd hill for him to die on, the MEK. Not just regime change, not just I want rid of the Islamic Republic and let's have a democracy. He seems to be behind these Islamist Marxists who, don't forget, were in league with Saddam Hussein, who were on the same side as the PLO. So when we hear that regime change in Iran is just part of a Zionist project, we have to be careful because it's clearly more complicated than this. If there are perhaps Zionist groups that would benefit from it or that are rooting for it, but also groups that are tied to the PLO, the Palestine Liberation Organization. I don't think anyone could accuse them of being Zionist, or could they? Terry Walker is saying, what's happening, lefties? Very good, Terry. How are you doing? How are things over there on the other wing of the eagle? I take it you're on the right. And Robertino is saying, well, let's see. Iran was stupid for 47 years, trying to boss around others in the region. Who did Iran boss around in the region, Robert? Iran hasn't launched a war against a neighbor for something like over 150 years, long before the Islamic Revolution, whether it was the Shah in power, whether it was Dr. Mossadegh, the democratically elected prime minister. I don't think Iran has launched a war on anybody. They've been the victims of war. Saddam Hussein attacked them with weapons given to him, Western powers. But maybe you're talking about influence that Iran has in the region, the Hezbollah, Houthis, these other groups. And August is saying, and oppressed women. Okay, that's another crime of the Islamic Republic, but not an aggressive war. Can we concede that, or is arming proxies just as bad? Kevin Gunter is saying it's a great project. Okay, I wonder which project he's talking about it. Terry Walker saying we're strong like wood, and we're not racist. We're just right. Vote restore Britain. It's the only way to get this beep hole back. Sorry, Terry. It's very silly when people on spelling, but when it is always ironic when a British patriot spells something in English incorrectly. But that's all right. Don't worry about it. I suspect I'm a bit dyslexic myself. Shall we hear a little bit more from John? Let's hear him again on the same topic.
Mr. Alawi is, I'm afraid, a sadly deluded soul. That may be the logical outcome in his misguided mind, but I'm afraid his mind and the truth on the ground are two totally different things. My fear is that Mr. Pahlavi's relationship with reality is at best that of a nodding acquaintance in a leap year. A nodding acquaintance in a leap year. I don't think he remotely understands what you just said in the preface to your question to me, Tim, which is the point at which he said to people go out on the streets and protest, which he was presumably saying from his safe haven in the United States. People had already been doing so. My dear chap, Mr. Pahlavi, you're very late to the party, old boy. You missed the boat, or if you ever caught a bus, you missed this one. People were already protesting in enormous numbers. So that's the first point. Secondly, on the question of him being the logical outcome of the protests, that I think is the surest indication that the man doesn't have a truly democratic mindset. Mr. Pahlavi seems still to subscribe to the old royal, aristocratic, almost, if you will, feudalistic notion that there is a hierarchy of entitlement and it's somehow his turn.
I looked at the program for the so-called transition to democracy that he has unveiled, and there are very serious flaws in it, Tim. First of all, there is no provision for a separation of powers, which is a key tenet of a functioning democracy. Second, that is an intended allegation of very large-scale powers to the leader of the national, capital L, capital N, capital U, leader of national uprising, and he has christened himself that leader and proposes, under new arrangements, a great arrogation of powers to him. That isn't democracy, it's the antithesis of democracy. And finally, I think I would say simply this. He does not propose a governing framework that is in any way inclusive of other people. It seems to be a kind of reversion to an aristocratic notion that the small elite, he's in its apogee, he leads, you follow. I have news for Mr. Falabi. There are many descriptions of that philosophy, but democratic isn't one of them.
Adrian King is mentioning the brutal regime of the Shah. Yes, the regime of the Shah 47 years ago was brutal, but show me a regime in the Middle East that was not brutal. I would have preferred the democratically elected Prime Minister, but he was ousted by Britain and America because he had the audacity to want the Iranian people to profit from Iran's oil. Don't forget, BP, British Petroleum, was originally Iranian petroleum. In the chat, Carlos Ramos, a rather open-minded guy, is saying, Islam is the truth. Islam is the truth. Okay, Carlos Ramos, which brand of Islam is the truth, or do you accept them all? Had quite an interesting moment in Speaker's Corner at the weekend. If you watch the live stream that is up on the channel, you'll probably catch it. I was with Adam from the English Muslim Alliance, who he is a bit of an enigmatic character, difficult to figure out, and a lot of people are not sure what his message is until they really get to chat to him. And a couple of guys approached us to find out what religion we were, and they were Muslim chaps. They were very keen to propagate Islam, and I think they wanted to know, well, are we talking to people that are Muslim already, or are we talking to people that maybe we can give dawah to, because we are upon the truth? And he even mentioned, I want to know if you've got the truth. And if you watch this channel, you know I like to keep my cards pretty close to my chest. I'm more there to document than propagate my own views. And I said, well, I have my beliefs, and I tend to keep them to myself. And then he kind of looked a bit vague, and he said, because Islam is the truth, and if you're already Muslim, then I don't need to speak to you, because you're already upon the truth, upon the haqq. So then, just to get the debate going, I said, for argument's sake, okay, I'm Shia Muslim then. I'm Shia Muslim. What now? And he said, oh, well, Shia Islam is different, or Shia is not Islam. He sort of immediately did a little bit of a takfir, and in his eyes, Shia is not. It's not even it's like a wrong part of Islam. It's not even Islam. And I found that very interesting, that you could wander into Speaker's Corner, where we're meant to have an open dialogue, and then be very dismissive of people with a different view. But if I'm right, if I've got wrong, and I meet him in the park again, maybe we can have another chat. Just because Carlos brought the topic up, you reminded me. And Boger is saying Islam. So you've only got to mention a religion, and the comments all start kicking off for, against. Why not have a little bit of respect for different beliefs? The Hadi is saying Pahlavi is accountable for all the lives lost by the violent protests. Is he? Are the people that pulled the trigger not responsible? We can't really blame other people for the actions of another, can we? And Carlos is bearing witness, and Carlos is saying, follow no sect of the Prophet. Right, but the Prophet mentioned that there would be several sects. Am I right? Captain is saying, who defines that? Yeah, exactly. Mage is saying 146 to 10. That's, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what about, but I don't know. You're something. Just want to show you a clip, an image from Iran itself. For those that completely dismiss the idea that Mr. Pahlavi has any support whatsoever on the ground in Iran. I believe this is footage from Iran. We all know that anyone can doctor any photo, and Photoshop has been around probably longer than the Islamic Revolution, but it would seem there are some people on the street chanting his name, holding his picture. I haven't seen any evidence of the MEK, but I presume they are in amongst the chaos as well, and there would be people supporting them. And you do see them; they've got a heavy presence everywhere. You'll see them in London. You will see them in many cities across Europe with heavily funded events that you can go to. They even will pay for your ticket if you agree to go and attend one of their rallies or one of their gatherings. They will fund you the expenses to get there. De Gaulle is saying, I cooked goat curry and rice for you. We appreciate you sharing that. Goat curry. And Hadi is saying, even if they are 1 million, they are still a minority. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Iran is a country of, is it 80 million? Off the top, I'm not sure, but it's certainly in the high tens of millions. And it's so hard to gauge the temperature on the ground. The internet was turned off. It was turned back on, but only for people. Remember, in whatever media you are consuming, there will always be selection, omission, and emphasis. Captain N Live, no to monarchs, yes to democracy and technocrats. Okay, but what if a monarch like our king, I nearly said queen, God save the king, he's not elected, but we have a democracy as well, don't we? But he's sort of there as a figurehead. And if you look at the Middle East, I hate to say it, I hate to admit this, because all my life I've been socialism and power to the people, but the safest countries for a long time in the Middle East were the countries that have a monarchy. Morocco is a tourist hotspot, more so than Algeria next door. Algeria next door have a president. Morocco have a king. Jordan, another peaceful country on the whole, right next to the war zone of Palestine. Jordan has a king. Jordan, relatively peaceful. In the 70s, the royal, and I'm not praising what happened, But in the 70s, when the PLO was it 70s or 80s? When was Black, I think 70s, Black September? It was actually the name given to one of the armed Palestinian factions, because in the month of September, the Jordanian royal family cracked down on the PLO and the Palestinians living in the camps in Jordan, because they were getting so powerful. Jordan, over 50% of families in Jordan are of a Palestinian background. They are from people who fled in either 1948 or 1967, and Jordan was in danger of being toppled, and they cracked down brutally. So there goes my argument for praising royal families, but I'm just acknowledging that sometimes the king, who is born into it, loves his country more and loves his people more than a president who was power hungry and became president by toppling the king. And we've got an update on the population of Iran, 91 million. Wow. So there's more Iranians than there are British people. And Carlos is saying, never praise people that praise demons. Okay, that's some good advice there. And Alex is saying that Black September, Hawkwind mentioned that in one of their songs. Is that right? Or Hawkwind, a rock band? I'm not too clued up on that type of music, but I've certainly heard of Hawkwind. Carlos Ramos is saying only praise God. Okay, I'm sure we can agree with that. Essentially, that is what all religions teach, isn't it? If you go back to their original texts. One moment. Okay. So let's hear from Trump. Why not?
Yeah, started 10 o'clock.
What's the end game? Is it to force Iran back to the negotiating table? Is it to open up the strait so that gas prices ultimately come down?
Maybe everything. I mean, both of those things, certainly, and more. We can't let a country blackmail or extort the world, because that's what they're doing. They're really blackmailing the world. We're not going to let that happen. Many ships are heading to our country right now as we speak to load up with the best.
Someone in the chat is asking why.
Somebody said the best and sweetest. I don't know exactly what sweet is, but when it relates to oil, it's a good thing. We've been called this morning by the right people, the appropriate people, and they want to work a deal. They would like to work a deal.
Is it your anticipation, Mr. President, that other countries will assist in this effort to blockade Iran and those?
Yeah, other countries are going to also. We don't need other countries, frankly, but they've offered the services. We'll let it be known probably tomorrow. Pope Leo said things that are wrong. He was very much against what I'm doing with regard to Iran, and you cannot have a nuclear Iran. Pope Leo would not be happy with the end result. You have hundreds of millions of people dead. He went public. I'm just responding to Pope Leo. And you know, his brother is a big MAGA person, and he's a great guy, Louis. And I said I like Louis better than I like the Pope. He believes strongly in law and order, and he seemed to have a problem with that. So there's nothing to apologize for. He's wrong.
So remember, the Straits of Hormuz were open before the war. Then they were closed by Iran. Then Trump demanded that they be opened. And now he's threatening to close them to other people. We've gone sort of more than a full circle, haven't we? Or we're going round in circles. But that is the point of war, isn't it? And remember, Julian Assange said it. The point was not to win the war, but to keep the wars going. And unfortunately, the man that ran on the promise of no more wars has sparked possibly World War III. Carlos Ramos is saying, praise God as one. no partners. That's great, Carlos Ramos. That's great for you. Why are you saying that in the chat? Why are you telling everyone that? Is that your personality? Is that, gosh, seems like it's a religion for you. Captain N Live, Jordan and Lebanon don't count as countries for me. And I don't mean that to belittle them. Perhaps Saudi Arabia could be cited as an example. Why do Jordan and Lebanon not count as countries, Captain? Is that because you see them as both part of Greater Syria? They're both Levantine countries. Lebanon was carved out of Syria. It could have been part of Syria. It was carved out by the French and the British in order to be a Christian country. It was meant to have a Christian majority. That's why they've always got a Christian president, regardless of the demography or the voting. It does have a form of democracy, but there's always a Christian president. There's always I can't remember, is it Sunni prime minister and a Shia speaker of the parliament? It's factional, and it's drawn out along sectarian lines. Captain is saying, but that too was brought about by the CIA intervention in 1950. In my opinion, leaving all the power in one man's hands is very risky, but a brilliant dictator might save a country. But power is always corrupt. Yes, I take your point. Oregon saying, you guys blame everything on your boogeymen, Mossad and CIA. You guys are tripping. All right, but the CIA have done some of these things. But it's fair to perhaps encouraging taking responsibility. We can't always just say, oh, it's not our fault. The CIA did it. We've got to take a little bit of responsibility. And Carlos is saying, praise God as one is the first commandment. Okay, Carlos, do you only talk about religion? Is that your go-to thing at parties? Robert, hello, Robert. This war is a game of gods. Human life is impermanent. Yeah. Who wants to live forever? Freddie Mercury said it best, didn't he? And I just hope it's not the end of the world. But the world will end at some point. Most of the religions tell us that one day there will be a great war. We've had two already, if that wasn't bad enough. People living in 1914, when World War One kicked off, they must have thought, well, this is it. This is the Great War, the Armageddon, the Malhama. They must have believed that, right? And then there was another one 20 years later. But what if it was? What if we've started again? And there's a new age arrived. Never know. Could be true. Carlos is saying it's a religious war, so religion is significant. Is this a religious war? Which religions are involved, and who is making an alliance with whom? Hashim is saying Dajjal coming, and Dajjal, of course, is the Arabic term for what they call the Antichrist in the New Testament. Dajjal meaning to trick. I remember hearing Sheikh Hamza Yusuf explaining, not the Scottish one, explaining the meaning of Dajjal. And he said Dajjala was when they painted a sick cow a different colour so you couldn't tell that it was sick. They were covering up the illness. So the full term is Masih ad-Dajjal, the Messiah Dajjal, the false Christ, the Antichrist. And remember, in the Greek language, anti doesn't mean against. People hear Antichrist and think, oh, well, he's going to be against Christ. Anti in this context means false. He will impersonate the Christ or the Messiah, and he will claim to be the Messiah. So he's not going to come out and say, I'm against Christ. He's going to say, I am Christ. I am the Messiah. Now, when we get into Islamic and Christian eschatology, that's the study of the end times, you can jump to a few conclusions, but because Jewish people have long been anticipating a Messiah, and for the Jews, that Messiah hasn't arrived yet. For the Christians and the Muslims, the Messiah was Jesus. Both religions acknowledge that. So then that gives you the question, when the false Messiah comes, will he be followed by Jewish people thinking he is the first Messiah? But from my perspective, the false Messiah, anyone could be fooled. Anyone could be tricked by a master of trickery, as our dear Sheikh Imran Hussein says. He has a PhD in deception. Christ will come again. This is from Barb Boj. And even this man made mess out for good. And Hashem is saying people of the book are involved. And of course, the people of the book, the Ahl Kitab, refer to the Jews and the Christians, the people of the scripture, the people that had the books from before. Robert is saying Allah versus Yahweh. Robert, are Allah and Yahweh not the same thing? Are they not different names for the same all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful creator that created us all? If you call the Messiah Jesus, he will walk right by you. His name is Yeshua. Thanks, Carlos. Well, you're probably right, but we all have different names in different languages, don't we? I think if you're referring to the same person, surely that's the important thing. Joe Cash is saying, I want to get on my knees to please you, Jesus. Okay, thanks, Joe Cash. Thanks for sharing that with us. If anyone does want to contribute with a voice note, or you could phone the number. It's 07886 993 784. It's a number that's only used by the channel. I'm not going to bombard you with advertising or anything, but you could do so. And Lone Wolf is saying, if any Muslim is in doubt of their religion, then go see the people of the book. Yes, I believe there is a hadith that mentions that. When unsure, consult the people of the scripture. And it's been mentioned on here before, and the Sheikh likes to mention it a lot. Islam, the Quran was not the first time Islam was revealed, it was the last time. That's the Islamic perspective. Why would you not consult? So people can be very arrogant, like the people I met at the weekend, and so sure that they know and they're on the right page. But you can, and this is what you'll learn in martial arts. You can learn something from a beginner. You might have been training for 10 years, and a beginner will know a technique that you don't know, or they'll be good at something that you're not very good at. So let's be humble when it comes to knowledge and religion, and don't think if someone's from a different religion to you that they can't teach you anything. Hashem is saying, what do you personally believe? What's the lesson for life? Well, Hashem, as I said in the park, I like to keep my views at a little distance from the channel so I can kind of be impartial. But if you watch for long enough, you'll kind of piece it together. Carlos Ramos is saying, I respect MA is that martial arts, but I like boxing. Well, yeah, is boxing a martial art? I've debated before. People kind of regard it as more of a sport, but if punching people, if Muay Thai or kickboxing, where you punch and kick, is a martial art, why is boxing not a martial art? Or do you think it's not complete enough because it doesn't involve anything other than punching? But no martial art is complete, is it? Other than mixed martial arts, which is a mix of all of them, including boxing. So I would, yeah, is boxing a martial art? I don't know, because it's Western. We don't associate it with the traditional aesthetic of martial arts. But I would say that boxing is a martial art for some people. It might be like a religion. Some people might feel that they've been saved by boxing, or any martial art. And I definitely think what some people find in religion, that peace and that tranquility, other people will find it in the discipline of martial arts or any sport. But there is something very spiritual about martial arts when you get on the mat or get in the ring and you take on your opponent, and then you shake hands at the end of it, and all is forgiven. Joe Cash is saying religion is a crutch for the weak. Well, how come every civilization there's ever been has had some kind of religion, Joe? And I bet that you have some, even if you're an atheist or an agnostic, you will have beliefs that are religious-like in your outlook. Lakum dinukum waliyadin. You have your religion. I have my religion, even if it's not a particular religion. Love from Ghana, Ashanti. I think this is not a religious war. Muslim and pagan can donate blood to Christians, so we are one. Oh, what a good point. And I remember the footage on 9/11 of Yasser Arafat queuing up to give blood when they lied and they said that it was Palestinians celebrating in the, and they saw 9/11 when that was actually archive footage of people celebrating something else and giving out sweets for a different reason. But there you go. There's propaganda. Carlos is agreeing that it's definitely an art. Yeah, the art of boxing could be a martial art. And Lone Wolf is saying the Quran confirms the Torah and the Injil. Good luck getting a Muslim to tell you what the Injil is, though. Well, if you know what evangelism is, and St. John the Evangelist evangelizing, Injil comes from evangel, and evangel means good news. I think evangel might be the Hebrew word and gospel the Greek word. They both mean good news, just as Christ is the Greek version of the Hebrew Messiah, the anointed one. So the Injil is the good news. It's the teachings of Jesus. Whether that was written down years later or spoken at the time, people are so literalists, aren't they? When it talks about the writings or the book, they're not going to believe it unless it's in a physical book. And there is actually debate about the meaning of the word kitab, meaning book. Is it a book or is it a writing? Because a book, a thing with pages, would be a mashaf, and a kitab would be a writing. But get the point. Why do we have to always get bogged down on the literal meaning and is it a book and which book is it? It's the teachings of Jesus. It's the message that he brought, whether that was written on paper or written on your heart. And Carlos is saying, free Palestine, may we all live in peace. Thanks, Carlos. Appreciate that, sir. Amen. All for that. Soon, God willing. Right, ladies and gents, I really appreciate you joining me. And if you want to do it again, you know what to do. This has been Lessons for Life on a Monday night. We'll do it all again soon, God willing. We were here. We are gone. Laters. And over on Sarah Dardasha, I hope we had good sound tonight. Good evening and good night to you all.